It is week 14 of the college football season. It's conference championship weekend. I'm Austin, and when you know who, of course, we're joined by Logan. He's here, and we're going to give out our favorite three picks for this weekend. Let's talk about last week, though, Logan. You had a winning week, 2-in-1 day. I went 1-2 on the weekend. The fans went 1-2. We need you guys to be a little bit better. Drop your favorite picks down below, and like the comments that you agree with. The top three most liked comments will track towards the record. Look, these are the biggest games. We'll have the playoffs coming up soon, and while we don't necessarily know when our next college football video will be, but we're going to cover some of the bowl games. Probably not all the small bowls, but the big ones, guarantee you'll have videos for that. But let's hop into our favorite picks, Logan. If you're new, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button too. I'm going to start with this first one. I'm going to start with a doozy, Logan. I'm going to start with the Fresno State Bulldogs. I'm taking them plus 3.5, minus 122 on FanDuel. Now, a couple different books have this at 3. I'd rather, obviously, a lot of games can end on the 3 with the field goal. So I'd rather get the 3.5 if you can. Still fine with that plus 3. I think that the Bulldogs have a good chance of winning this one outright. Now, this is the Mountain West Championship, and it's a rematch from earlier this season when we saw Fresno State go into Boise, Idaho, and they lost by 20 points. Now, some people might look at that and say, whoa, I got to bet Boise State. This is an easy, no sweat bet. But Fresno State didn't have their starting quarterback then, and now they do. And they're winners of 7 straight games. And Jake Hayner, I believe is how you pronounce his last name, he's been dominant. 73% completion percentage, 17 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And look, the Bulldogs, 6-1 when he starts. The only loss they had against a very good Oregon State team who just beat Oregon last week. This is a very good Oregon State team, and they lost, and he got injured in that game. So I like Boise State. They're still good. They've won 7 of their last 8, but I think this is more of a field goal game, which is why I like the plus 3.5. I think Fresno State has the better quarterback in this game. We'll have the best player on the field. So give me the Fresno State Bulldogs, the underdog, plus 3.5 for the Mountain West Championship, Logan. But what's your first pick of the week?
You're going from Bulldogs. I'm going to the Bulldogs, and I'm going to the SEC Championship, and I'm taking Georgia minus 17.5 versus LSU in this one. Look, if you're looking at it, it's a big number to lay in the SEC Championship, but Georgia is just that good, right? They're deserving of this high number to me. LSU, fresh off an embarrassing loss to the Texas A&M Aggies. They did not look all that great in that one. Jaden Daniels as well, their starting quarterback. He was injured last game. He's probable for this matchup. But at the end of the day, if he's a little bit hobbled, if he's not 100%, a guy that like him that relies so much on running the football, he might be in trouble, especially against this Georgia defense. That will absolutely tee off on him. Look, the last time LSU was underdogs like this, they were 13.5-point underdogs against Bama. They won outright, right? That's misleading, though. I want to let everyone know Bama is not the Bama of old, this year. Georgia is the new Alabama, right? They are the teams that will cover those big numbers. And the odds makers know LSU's offense really isn't that hard to stop. Georgia's defense well equipped to stop this LSU attack. 11th in scoring defense, 8th in yards per play allowed. Ask Tennessee how good this Georgia defense is. Tennessee in that in the Heupel offense was just flying so high coming into Georgia. And what did Georgia's defense do? They reminded them of that big boy brand of football they can play. And look at this LSU's defense by comparison. They gave up 429 yards to a nasty Texas A&M offense. Now they get the challenge of defending the great Georgia offensive athletes in space. Those 2 big tight ends, the athletes on the perimeter. Look, I don't envy LSU's task in this one. I don't envy them at all. I think this is a 21, 24-point type game, and I'm riding with Georgia in this one.
I hope the Bulldogs take us home. Now let's move in, Logan. It's the best bet of the weekend. Last week I lost mine. You won yours. We're going 2-0. You see these quarter zips. I don't think we can lose with these quarter zips on. All right, let's start with mine. I'm going to go to a team that I know better than any other team in college football, my UCF Knights. And while I'm not taking the Knights on the spread, I'm going to actually take the under 57 points as they go to Tulane. This is the AAC championship, but a lot more is on the line than the AAC's championship. Obviously, Tulane hasn't won one. I really don't know when the last time they won one. UCF obviously been pretty dominant over the last decade or so, but this is also a New Year's Six berth on the horizon. So whoever wins this game probably going to a New Year's Six bowl. And we already looked at these 2 teams. They played earlier this season. You could step back and say, the same thing's going to happen. UCF won that game 38-31. They soared over this line. They scored 69 points. This line's at 57. AAC doesn't play any defense. Well, these 2 teams, if any teams are going to play defense, these are 2 of the 3 teams in the AAC to play it. And we look at UCF in that game. I want to look a little bit harder into that game because they scored 38 points. 24 of them came by the 8-minute mark in the second quarter. So after that mark, they only were managed to score 14 points. Tulane figure out the offense. And while I don't know who starts for the UCF Knights, if it's John Reese Plumlee, he looked great at the beginning of that game. But then Tulane said, you can't throw the football. And I love John Reese Plumlee. He's fun to watch, but I promise you, he's not the greatest quarterback. And I think Tulane figured out this UCF Knights offense. You stop John Reese Plumlee from running, and then you're pretty much good. That's all you have to do. And if Mikey Keene starts, well, UCF might as well punt on first down at that rate. Yeah, Mikey Keene has not been that good, but Tulane's got a solid offense too. But the UCF Knights coming off a bad showing against USF, their arch rival. But the UCF Knights have failed to give up 30 plus points in back-to-back games all season long. I think they're going to dial it in here. I think this is more of like a final score 31-24, which is still a lot of points in my opinion for this game. Still stays under this line. My best for the weekend. I normally don't do a lot of over-unders, but I really like UCF, really like this Tulane team, and I think their defenses are very underrated. So I'll lean the under. This is a big-time game for both these two teams. They could come out a little bit sluggish and a little bit with nerves on their side with the New Year's Six Bowl on the horizon for whoever wins this game. Give me the under as my best bet of the weekend. Logan, what's your best bet this weekend?
Yeah, Austin, sticking with the theme of the year, people hate my best bet. People love to go down in the comments because I go against the public a lot of the time. And once again, I'm going against the public in this one. I'm taking Utah. Look, if you're looking at who needs this game more, it's obviously USC, right? USC needs this win to keep their college football playoff hopes alive. And if you're looking at the slate, you're going to see two of these college football playoff hopefuls, USC and TCU, both favored by roughly a field goal. I think one of them is going to lose outright, and I think it could easily be Southern Cal in this one. Look, roughly 80% of the bets and the money are on USC to win and cover and avenge their earlier loss to Utah. A lot of people are pounding that narrative drum. Oh, it's time USC pays them back, for the 43-42 win that Utah had earlier. Well, that's not always how this works, right? You can say that they'll make the adjustments, but at the end of the day, Utah you simply won in a shootout, 43-42 last time they faced. Last time I remember that game very well because I picked Utah -3.5. They won. They did not cover. But I think once again, they're going to cover today, even as underdogs. Utah had 562 yards of total offense last time. 424 yards of that were in the air, which is a big weakness of this USC defense, right? USC's defense, 103rd in passing yards allowed per game. So they're definitely, able to be shredded through the air. Cam Rising, the quarterback for Utah, he's a seasoned veteran. He will be able to get the big chunk plays against this USC defense. If it turns it into a shootout, I still think Utah has a good shot. I know a lot of people are going to say, well, if it's a track meet again, USC is going to run away. But you know what? I think it's going to be up to the Utah defense to hold Caleb Williams in check. Caleb Williams likely going to be the Heisman winner. He's had an amazing season. But if they could just keep, some of those touchdowns to field goals, I think Utah's got a really good shot in this one. Utah's defense has definitely shown that on the year. Utah's defense 25th in scoring defense and 49th in passing yards allowed. So this is a capable defense in the Pac-12 championship. Look, I think Utah wants to play spoiler in this one, and I think they're going to cover the +2.5 as my best bet.
Logan, I like that pick. The problem is I swear I just saw an odds boost on my thing for USC and TCU to win. I feel like that's going to be an odds boost. It's not an actual one at the moment of recording this, but wouldn't be surprised. And speaking of that TCU Big 12 championship, I'll go to my third and final pick of the weekend. It's going to be in that game. And while I lean the Kansas State, I'd lean them to get the cover, I'm going to actually go with the under 62 points in this one. It's -110 on DraftKings. When you originally look at this, you see a TCU under in this low 60s. You're like, I'll hammer the over. Understandable. TCU has a great offense. Kansas State has a good offense. But you look at the last time these two teams faced each other, they scored 66 points. Now, they barely went over this line, but you have to look a little bit harder into that game. 45 of the 66 points, over 2/3 of the points came in the first half. In the second half, Kansas State didn't even manage to score a single point. It's only 21 points scored, and they had 3 touchdowns of 50 or longer yards. Like, if you're going to get those long touchdowns, it's going to be hard to cash an under 62 with those quick plays. But how sustainable are those to long touchdowns? I know TCU has been a great offense this year, but I just think this line is a little bit low, and I think it's low for a reason. TCU, they can score points. Kansas State scored 47 plus points in the last 2 weeks. I think these offenses cool down. Kansas State, I think, loses in a track meet. Just like I doubt Utah wants to get into a track meet with USC, although they could still win that game. Doesn't bode well for their chances. But I think Kansas State, which has a decent defense, TCU's defense quietly turning it around a little bit over the last couple of weeks. I think people are going to just look into this and expect, a 40-40 shootout. And while we could get that, maybe we get an electric game. I think this is more of like a, 30-30 game, low, like high 28 or so, but it's hard to score 62 points. We saw Texas just a couple weeks back, Texas versus TCU. Everyone was hammering the over in that game. It was like 60-something points. They combined for a big 27. So Texas kind of put out a blueprint. This is kind of how you can try to stop this TCU offense. Neither team has home field advantage. It's a neutral site game. I think the unders are smarter playing this one. Well, I do think Kansas State covers because they can't keep giving out free money on the Horned Frogs, but I'm not going to take that. I don't need the comment section to attack me. I'd rather take the under 62 points. It's more of a safer play. I don't think Kansas State can cover this if this is a high scoring game. So give me Kansas State and TCU. Take the under 62 points. But Logan, your third and final play of the week.
Yeah, this game isn't as meaningful as yours, but it's some quality action to end it for us. We're going to Toledo versus Ohio, and I'm taking Toledo -3 against the Bobcats in this one. Look, as I always do with these, I like to do a little bit of line reading, right? Ohio 9-3, Toledo 7-5. On paper, it looks like Ohio should be favored. But once again, they're not. And you have to dive into why. Now, I do kind of want to point out a funny trend, right? The biggest mistake anybody in gambling can make is just betting solely off of trends, because trends are meant to be broken, right? Toledo has failed to cover in each of their last 5 games. Ohio has covered in 8 straight games. So, which one of these streaks is going to end? I'm saying Toledo's finally going to cover, and Ohio's not going to cover in this one. Toledo is coming off a couple, bad conference losses, but they're going to be motivated to play this OU team. And I'm sure they're going to feel like underdogs in their head. I don't know how many of those players in that locker room are looking and saying, oh, guys, we're 3-point favorites in this one. I think they're going to feel like an underdog, because they are, at the end of the day, a 7-5 team facing a 9-3 team. So I think when you look at these two teams on paper as well, both offenses are top 30-ish in scoring. So which team is going to make the stops defensively that they need to win? Toledo is going to be that team for us. Toledo 31st in passing yards per game allowed. Ohio, by comparison, 130th in passing yards allowed per game. So big advantage for Toledo's defense and Toledo's secondary in this one. And also the other storyline in this one is C.J. Harris, backup quarterback for Ohio. He looked good last week, but that's last week. They now the film's out on him, and this Toledo defense can game plan for him. But it's clear that the books see a roadblock for him this week. I don't think Ohio would be 3-point underdogs on a neutral site game like this if the books didn't kind of see C.J. Harris regression coming. I think Toledo's defense is going to rise up, and I'm riding with the Rockets on this one for a little bit of action to end our slate.
Logan, I know you have an Ohio Bobcats jersey somewhere in your apartment right now. That hurts to go against them, but I understand why you're doing it, and I don't hate the pick. I think Toledo's the better team in this one. So those are our 3 favorite picks of the week. That's conference championship weekend. Enjoy the games. We got a lot of electric games. Now, when the next video for college football will be live, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine, but we'll try to cover games. Maybe if there's like 4 or 5 bowl games on a weekend, Logan and I will come on and do a video. We appreciate you guys as always. If you want to buy some Call on Our Shot merch like these cool quarter zips, go do it. CallOnOurShot.com. We appreciate you guys as always for the support. Logan and Austin signing out. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.